Morten Thorning è il direttore generale di The Animation Workshop. È una forza trainante in questa istituzione sin dalla sua nascita nel 1989. Thorning si è impegnato nello sviluppo dell'animazione europea in modo da farla diventare un competitor internazionale che possa veramente rivaleggiare sia con la scena americana che con quella asiatica. Thorning è un libero pensatore ed è convinto che si possa riuscire da soli a costruirsi le basi per una crescita personale e professionale. La sua filosofia è quella di coniugare la creatività di alto livello con un'intensa disciplina, in modo da ottenere così le migliori qualità.
I think that the future topics of animation will be, we will see films that are moving from being just children films, films for kids, to be a film that moves up in also having to deal with more adult themes. And that means that we'll see topics treated with animation that we haven't seen before. It's I can't come up with something just right off my head now, but I can just see that there's a tendency that the audience who were once kids are now adults and they want to see animation as badly as they did as when they were kids. So I think there's no limits to what you can tell with animation and what will be told in the future. I think we have some very important animation centers in Europe. We have in London where most of the visual effects work is taking place. I think in that sense London is a fantastic animation center. I also think that different places in Europe, in Paris especially, but also in Copenhagen, in Denmark, there is a lot going on. But the scale of it is like we Europeans are first moving in to animation seriously now. And what has been making the Americans so successful is because they had the feature film. The feature film is what makes the animation industry, because there's so many people who needs to work on it. So the feature film is a very important vehicle for developing an animation center or an animation environment, and also from taking what is so important that they have been very good at doing in the United States is they know that animation is an art form, but it is an art form that has to function on a market. And when an art form has to function on a market, it's totally different rules that is put in front of the artist on how it's going to work. So the Europeans are, it's first now that we are actually finding out of this. And I think that we will have an animation center in Europe that is just as strong as the ones in Asia and in the United States. 3D technology is certainly the future of animation because we can now create everything. There's no limits to what you can make on film, and there's the border between what do you call that? We call it meat film, but the border between a real film and animation film is totally dissolving, and the two different films are mixing, the two different genres are mixing together, and we've seen that it started really with the whole Tolkien trilogy, and we saw it with the Avatar, but now we see so many films where even I'm sometimes sitting, I remember seeing The Golden Compass, which is a nice little film, and I'm sitting there in the opening of the film, and there's all these kids, they're running down some stairs and out into a field, and each kid has an animal following, and I think, God, they have trained those animals well. That's fantastic. But then one of the animals suddenly turned from being a bird to a squirrel, and then I thought, stupid me. This is animation. So what I say is that yes, we are just in the stone age of the 3D technology right now. It can take us into incredible realms and places. So watch out and beware for that. I am a big fan of 2D animation. I grew up with 2D animation. I can see how the Japanese they stick to 2D animation as a genre that can tell stories in a different way than 3D animation. You're not going. It's not going to look realistic. It's going to look like drawings. And we just had the last year's films that came out of the animation workshop. I think that 3 out of 6 films 6 3D animation films, had toon shading and toon rendering, and they tried to make them look as much as possible as if they were 2D films, which I think is quite funny. And it's because the people have a certain, I think it does something certain to us when we see 2D. And basically it has something to do with that we now know that we are in an illustrative world. We are in another world than the 3D world. I differ between the CG artist and the character animator. And the CG artist is the scenographer of the 3D film, or the 2D film for that matter. And the character animator is the actor of the film. And both of them have to be very, very good at drawing. Drawing is a fundamental skill. Like for a musician, you have to master your instrument. Drawing is your instrument if you want to work in animation. And I believe it takes a year. If you sit down for a year and then you learn how to draw, it's not that hard. It just requires a lot of work. It doesn't really have anything to do with talent. It has to do with the fact that you're just keeping on working with it. And they say, I heard somebody say that it takes 10,000 hours to learn, to master anything. And if you use 10,000 hours, that's maybe more than a year, I don't know. But you will be a master at drawing. So drawing is one thing, but then of course you need to know, if you want to be an animator, you need to have a passion for acting. You need to understand how you tell stories to characters. You need to understand how the pacing and the composition is of a film. You need to know your cinematography and all of this. For the CD artists, it's a little more technical what you need, but it's still artistic, things that were considered to be artistic skills before that now is kind of taken to a more engineering level, which means that there's, for instance, if you work with color, you have to know the whole color theory, and if you work with other kinds of stuff in the CD art, there's a lot of skills that you have to master. Again, I compare these people working in animation with musicians. They have to master the skill set before they're really interesting to listen.